"You keep asking for money, Mom. It's getting embarrassing." Calvin didn't even look up as he pushed the check across the table. I picked it up without hesitation, though I'd already paid the deposit 2 weeks ago when I made the reservation. Paige smirked behind her mimosa. "You should let us treat you for once." I gave them both a polite smile, folding the receipt into my purse as if I hadn't heard. The waiter approached, hovering with the card machine, and I nodded. "Same card," I said. He tapped and left. I reached for my tea, trying to steady my hand. The glass clinked softly against the saucer. It was a small place they had picked, quaint, white brick and reclaimed wood. I noticed how Paige's watch glinted as she stirred her coffee, how Calvin's jacket bore a brand I remembered paying off last December. He leaned back in his chair, glancing at his phone. "We should probably get going. Paige's parents are coming by this afternoon." "Of course," I said. I folded my napkin. Outside, the air was soft with early spring. We paused by my car, my older sedan, clean but plain. Calvin kissed my cheek. "Love you, Mom." Paige gave a light wave, already sliding into their newer SUV. "Happy Mother's Day." I stood for a moment after they drove off, staring at the empty space where they'd been. I wasn't angry, just tired. When I got home, I left my purse on the table and sat down at the desk in my small study. The house was quiet, clean, predictable. I pulled out the file folder, the one I updated every few months. Inside, names, dates, transaction notes. 5 years of quiet transfers, balances, paid interest accrued. I already knew the number, and I already knew this couldn't keep going. My house has always been modest. 2 bedrooms, 1 bath, no mortgage, no clutter, just mine. After I changed clothes, I made a cup of tea and sat at the kitchen table with my folders. Green for monthly bills, blue for family support, red for taxes. The blue one was heavier than it used to be. I opened it, scanning through the copies of transfers and bank statements. Car insurance recurring, a $2,300 payment to cover Calvin's student loans the year he got laid off, $1,100 for emergency dental surgery after he cracked a molar. 3 years ago, I paid the first 2 months' rent on their apartment when they were still waiting for a bonus check. Each one marked temporary, just until next payday, or "we'll handle it soon." I flipped to the back pocket where Paige's email still sat, printed on crumpled paper. "See if there's any way you can help this time. It would save Calvin a lot of embarrassment at work. I know it's not your responsibility, but we're really stuck. It won't be like this forever. Thank you again." I'd wired the $880 the next morning. That had been 2 years ago. Now they were posting photos in front of their renovated kitchen, new backsplash, pendant lighting, even a wine fridge. I didn't resent what they had, but I couldn't remember the last time either of them had acknowledged what I'd given. No mention of the canceled trips, the clothes I stopped buying, or the part-time job I kept an extra year. I picked up my flip phone, the one Calvin kept urging me to replace, and checked the time. Then I placed it back on the table without reading the new message. I walked into the study. The file drawer squeaked as I opened it, pulling out the envelope I'd prepared months ago. I placed it on the desk. Then I opened my laptop, went into my banking app, and stared at the row of active payments. It was time. I sat down at my desk that night with the same calm I used to bring to HR exit interviews. No drama, just tasks. Opening the banking app, I scrolled past my regular bills and found the 5 automatic transfers, each one labeled clearly, each one with Calvin's name on the other end. I started with the car insurance. The confirmation box popped up. "Are you sure you want to cancel this recurring payment?" "Yes." Next, the credit card minimums. "Yes." The personal loan he took out for a business idea he never followed through with. "Yes." One by one, I stopped them all. My inbox filled with confirmation emails in neat, polite language. "Your recurring payment has been canceled. No further charges will occur." I opened the spreadsheet. Every date, amount, and purpose was there, documented for 5 years. I didn't have to scroll far to see the total, $591,874.2. I stared at it for a long moment, not out of disbelief, just to let the number settle into something more than a secret. I printed the document, slid it into a folder labeled Family Support, and placed it next to my will in the drawer. There was no emotion to fight down, no boiling resentment or rising sadness, just the clean relief of a decision long overdue. I closed the laptop and made a cup of tea, sat on the couch, hands wrapped around the warmth. The phone on the counter buzzed with a new text from Calvin. I didn't read it. I knew the rhythm of his requests by now. If he noticed anything missing, it wouldn't be tonight. Maybe not tomorrow, but eventually he would. And when he did, he would learn what it feels like when something expected simply stops. 2 weeks passed before the silence cracked. The first text was from Paige. Hey, weird question. Did you change banks? Our payment bounced. I didn't answer. The next morning, Calvin. Mom, something's wrong with the card. Call me when you get this. I poured my coffee and sat by the window. By noon, you didn't cancel the insurance, right? That one I read twice, then set the phone down late that evening. Seriously, we're getting hit with late fees. If you're upset, just say so, but don't mess with our accounts. I didn't reply. Instead, I watered the ivy in the hallway and took a walk around the block. The air smelled like warm concrete and pine mulch. My steps felt lighter than usual. The next day brought a call from my cousin Lee. Hey, just checking in. Calvin said you've been forgetting things lately, like important stuff. I nearly dropped the dish I was rinsing. I dried my hands on the towel and brought the phone to my ear. Oh yeah, she said awkward. He mentioned you canceled some things by accident, and now you're not answering him. I smiled, the kind that only shows in the eyes. Thanks for checking in. There was a pause. Are you okay? I'm doing very well. After we hung up, I stood at the sink for a long while. The story was writing itself just as I expected. I walked back to the desk and opened the file again. Everything was still there, my records, my proof. They could say whatever they wanted, but the truth wasn't going anywhere. And the more they talked, the more people would start to wonder why the story kept changing. I opened the spreadsheet again, this time not just to look, but to complete it. 5 years of payments. I went through each one line by line. Every dollar had a date. Every transfer had a reason. March 2022, Paige asked again. Tearful, said it was urgent. September 2021, told Calvin I couldn't afford it, sent payment anyway. June 2020, birthday gift turned into rent money. I highlighted the total in bold, $591,874.2. I added columns for category, frequency, and notes, cross-referenced statements with email threads. Paused at a few, reading the same empty promises they'd repeated over the years. Then I saved the file 3 times, 1 copy on my hard drive, 1 on a USB key in the drawer, and 1 to the cloud, just in case. I didn't plan to send it to anyone. Not yet. Maybe not ever. But I knew what they were doing. The rewrites had already begun. Memory loss, mental lapses. They weren't going to stop. So I built the one thing no one could argue with, a record. Numbers, timestamps, receipts. I closed the folder and leaned back in my chair. The late light poured through the blinds across the desk, striping the paper with soft gold. That's enough, I said aloud. And for the first time in a long time, I believed it. I got up, turned on the porch light, and locked the front door. Tomorrow, I knew the calls would come again, and the next story would begin. The next call was from my brother Daniel. Catherine, why are you making waves? It's Mother's Day, not a courtroom. Before I could answer, his wife cut in from the background. It's just money. Let it go already. That phrase, just money, hit harder than I expected. No one asked what happened. No one asked what changed. They just echoed Calvin's version. I was overreacting, bitter, unwell. Paige had apparently told her side to half the extended family. She said I'd become difficult, unpredictable, maybe even depressed. I stopped answering the phone until a message came through from my niece, Alina. She'd always been observant, quiet but sharp. Is it true you were paying all that time? I stared at the message, then attached the file, sent it without explanation. 5 minutes later, she responded, Jesus, I had no idea. Another ping. He said you asked for money all the time. I didn't reply. I didn't need to. The silence on my end said everything. She didn't defend him, didn't try to explain it away, just followed with, if you ever want help sorting things out, I'm good with spreadsheets too. It was the smallest thing, but it cracked something open. For years, I'd been the one who fixed things behind closed doors, the reliable one, the background support. Now the truth was surfacing slowly, in pieces. Not because I shouted, not because I made a scene, just because I stopped hiding it. And somewhere, finally, someone was listening. I spotted them before they saw me. Calvin stood, stiff, arms crossed just inside the entrance of the library. Paige paced beside him, her sunglasses pushed up like a headband, lips pressed into a tight line. They looked out of place against the calm hush of the building. The volunteer's desk had a small display of bookmarks and donated paperbacks. A mother and child flipped through picture books nearby. I walked past them without slowing. "Mom," Calvin said, stepping in front of me. "We need to talk." I met his eyes but said nothing. "Why would you embarrass us like this?" Paige snapped. "You could have just asked for help," Calvin added, "instead of pulling whatever this is." I looked at them both. Perfect hair, expensive sneakers, the subtle panic in Paige's voice. Then I said evenly, "I've been helping you for 5 years. Paige shifted her weight, already interrupting. "You said you wanted to help. You told people I begged for money." That stopped them. Calvin blinked. Paige's mouth opened, but nothing came out. "You said I forgot things, that I was unstable," I continued. "Catherine," Paige said, her voice softening into something meant to sound concerned, "you're not well. You need rest, space. This kind of paranoia isn't like you." I looked at her, then at my son. I'm more clear-headed than I've been in years. I stepped aside, walked around them, and kept moving. Behind me, Paige said something under her breath, sharp and fast, but I didn't turn back. I returned to the volunteer desk, signed in, and placed the returned books in the sorting bin. My hands didn't shake. My breath was steady. They'd come for a confrontation. What they found instead was a line they hadn't expected me to draw, and I wasn't going to erase it. The phone rang just after sunset. I almost let it go to voicemail, but the name on the screen stopped me. Isa. I hadn't spoken to my granddaughter one-on-one in nearly a year. "Grandma," her voice was quiet, uncertain. "Is now a bad time?" "No, sweetheart, I'm here." A pause. Then, Mom's been crying. Dad's pacing around the kitchen. What's going on?" I closed the book. I hadn't really been reading. "I think that's something you should ask them." Another pause. "They won't say. Just that you've been acting strange." I didn't answer right away. Instead, I looked out the window where the porch light cast a soft circle on the lawn. "Has anyone ever told you," I said slowly, "who paid your tuition last year?" The line went silent. After a moment, "You did?" "Yes." A breath. Soft, careful. "I didn't know. I thought—" She trailed off. "I know," I said. "I'm sorry." We didn't say much else. The call ended gently, with no promises, no sides taken. But something had shifted. The next day, a small envelope arrived. No return address, just my name in looping handwriting. Inside, a single card, handwritten, "Thank you for everything. I'm sorry it took me this long to ask." No signature, but I knew the handwriting. I held the card for a long time. It didn't undo what had been said. It didn't soften the years of silence or rewrite the stories others were still telling. But it reached something in me that had gone untouched for a very long time. I placed the card in the same folder where I kept the spreadsheet, right behind the printed copy of the payment trail. Then I stood up, made a cup of coffee, and sat by the window until the light faded completely. The phone stayed quiet that night, and for once I didn't dread what the next day might bring. The office was quiet, lined with rows of leather-bound folders and framed degrees. I'd been there once before, after my mother passed. That time, the paperwork had felt cold and final. This time, it felt like something else, necessary. My lawyer, Ms. Green, greeted me with a small nod. "Ready to update the documents?" "Yes," I said. "I've made a few changes." We reviewed the will line by line. Calvin's name was the first to go, then Paige's. In their place, I added Isa, not because she thanked me, but because she asked. The rest went to a community fund I'd supported quietly for years, grants for single mothers starting over. Ms. Green raised an eyebrow. "Do you want to leave any provisions for contesting parties?" I shook my head. "Include a no contest clause. If anyone challenges, they forfeit everything." She nodded, typing briskly. "Anything else?" I reached into my bag and handed her the folder. "My records. 5 years, every payment, every note. File this with the will, just in case someone tries to rewrite history." She opened it, scanned a few pages, and gave a quiet whistle. "Thorough." "I used to audit company books," I said. "Old habits." When we finished, she handed me a final copy to sign. My signature was steady. Outside, the sun had dipped behind the courthouse roofline, casting long shadows across the sidewalk. I stood for a moment with the folder still warm in my hand. I didn't feel triumphant. I didn't feel angry, just clean, like something old had finally left my body. I drove home with the windows cracked, letting the breeze in. Tomorrow, I'd return to the library, shelve books, sort returns. But tonight, I'd sit on my porch with a cup of tea, and nothing urgent to worry about. Not money, not guilt, and certainly not anyone else's version of my story. The breeze was light that morning, enough to ruffle the edge of the tablecloth on the porch. I sat with my tea, the same blend I'd been drinking for years, but it tasted different now, clean. Inside, my phone buzzed again. I didn't get up. By noon, I'd counted 33 missed calls. Paige had sent a message. "We're losing the car. Can you please just help this once?" I stared at the words through the screen door for a while, then turned back to my tea. After lunch, I opened my bank app. The usual 880 was still sitting there, untouched. 3 months now. That number used to vanish before I even noticed it. This time I moved it. One click, then a second. Transferred to a new account I'd labeled Travel Fund. It wasn't a big gesture. I hadn't booked anything yet. I wasn't even sure where I'd go. But it was a beginning. I leaned back in the chair, listening to the faint hum of the neighborhood, children yelling down the street, a lawnmower starting, the postman's footsteps on gravel. Nothing urgent, nothing needed from me. The spreadsheet stayed closed. The phone stayed quiet. I let the silence stretch, unbothered, and whispered to the breeze, "Just me now. Not someone's mother, not someone's fallback, not a fund." The words felt strange in my mouth, weightless but real. Later that week, I stopped by the travel agency downtown. It had been years since I'd planned anything just for myself. The woman at the desk looked up and smiled. "Can I help you plan a trip?" "Maybe," I said, "somewhere warm." She slid a few brochures across the counter. Portugal, Greece, New Zealand. Places with light, water, and quiet. I ran my fingers over the glossy photos. "I'll think about it." "Take your time," she said kindly. That night, I stood by the window watching the dusk settle over the street. I could still hear the faint echo of Calvin's voice from months ago, sharp, impatient, heavy with entitlement. "You keep asking for money, Mom. It's embarrassing." Funny, I hadn't asked for anything. I smiled faintly to myself. There were things you couldn't teach through arguments or guilt. Only absence could do that. Weeks passed. The calls slowed, then stopped. My days found a rhythm again. Morning tea, volunteer hours, quiet walks through the park. I started sleeping through the night without dreams of overdue bills or forgotten favors. Then, one afternoon, while shelving returns at the library, I saw a familiar pair of figures standing by the reference desk. Paige, holding a folder to her chest. Calvin, his expression tight, like a man rehearsing apologies he didn't believe. I pretended not to notice and kept stacking the books. "Mom," Calvin said softly, "can we talk?" I looked up. "You're welcome to walk with me while I finish this section." Paige hesitated, but followed. For a few aisles, no one spoke. Then Calvin sighed. "We're selling the SUV. Things have been tight." I nodded. "That happens." "We didn't realize how much you'd been covering," Paige murmured. "I mean, we knew, but not like that." "It's all there in the file," I said. "I guess we just thought it would always be there," Calvin admitted, his voice small now. "You." For the first time, I turned to look at him fully. I was. For a long time. He nodded, shame flickering over his face. Paige looked down at her shoes. No tears, no dramatic reconciliation. Just the quiet discomfort of truth settling in. When we reached the end of the aisle, I placed the last book on the shelf and turned to leave. "Take care of yourselves," I said gently. I walked away before either of them could answer. That evening, I received a single message from Calvin. "I'm sorry." I read it once, then deleted it. Not out of spite, but peace. Some words didn't need to live in print anymore. I sat outside as twilight deepened, the sky bruised with purple and gold. My teacup was warm in my hands. For the first time in decades, I had nothing left to explain. The wind lifted the corner of the travel brochure still lying on the table. I smoothed it flat and smiled. Maybe somewhere quiet by the sea. Somewhere no one called asking for help. Somewhere the silence didn't mean neglect, it meant freedom. And when I finally booked that ticket, I knew it wouldn't be an escape. It would be a return. To myself. To peace. To a life that didn't revolve around someone else's needs. I closed my eyes and whispered to the night air, "You did enough." And for once I believed it.